I atop the battlements of Castle Curmudgeon, where you can lead a wokester to soy milk, but you can't give him a cardboard straw. Good evening, Mr. and Mrs. America, and all ships at sea. Welcome to the Blast Radio. So glad to have you with us this evening. Here is your Decline of Western Civilization News Roundup for the work week ending 9 August 2024. Dateline, Washington, Monday, 5 August. A full 3 weeks after the palace coup in which she was installed as the presumptive Democrat nominee, Vice President the California Cackler, in addition to exercising the bold and very novel strategy of being a presidential candidate who assiduously avoids interviews and press conferences and really any scenario where she says words into a live microphone that aren't being read off of a prompter screen, is also shaking things up by having still 0 policy positions listed on her official campaign website. There's an About Kamala tab. There's a link for if you want to donate money, naturally. There's a link to the merch store, obviously. But if, say you're an undecided swing state voter who wants to know the policy positions of the Democrat Party presidential nominee, well, I'm afraid you're just shit out of luck on that score. You shouldn't be so hung up on the details anyway, goddammit. This is not a policy election. This is an election where you vote for the beautiful black Nubian goddess. Or the beautiful Punjabi Indian goddess, depending on who the audience is. And you don't do it because you agree with her policies. You don't do it because you want a better life for yourself and your children. You do it because she is not a white dude and the other guy is. Nothing about this is freaking rocket surgery. Remember in 2008 when you voted for Barack Obama because they said you'd be racist if you didn't? And remember when you voted for him again in 2012 with the full knowledge that he was a pretty terrible president? Because they said only a racist country would throw a mulatto president out of office just for sucking at his job? Well, we just need you to do that one more time. You know, we couldn't be making this appeal up until a few weeks ago when our candidate was not just a crusty old white man, but the honest-to-God last living segregationist senator, but now we can make it. And you bet your sweet ass we are going to lean into that thing good and hard. Do you really need to see any policy positions when your choice is between being a racist and not being one? Yeah, that's what I thought. I hope this little talk has helped. Dateline Pasadena, Tuesday, 6 August. Well, last week we talked, though perhaps at not sufficient length, about the cucktastic exercise in inadvertent self-mockery that was White Dudes for Kamala, in which a cavalcade of obese, feminized, middle-aged former celebrities took turns telling stories about how hard they wept when Hillary didn't win in 2016. And would you believe this week we have managed to locate a group of people with even less self-respect than those guys? Well, yeah, of course you'd believe it. Because there's no possible way that would not happen. So who's up this week? Well, you guessed it. It's Childless Cat Ladies for Kamala. Joel Pollack of Breitbart News reports that this week at something called CatCon in Pasadena, which evidently is some sort of annual Woodstock for sad, lonely spinster ladies who prefer feline companionship to the humankind, some attendees showed up wearing Childless Cat Ladies for Kamala t-shirts and expressing their fervent displeasure with Republican vice presidential nominee Senator J.D. Vance for his pretty well-reasoned and fairly highly accurate characterization of their community. And I feel like I can't be the only one who saw the irony in all that. Or J.D. Vance said a thing about childless cat ladies, and all the childless cat ladies responded by acting exactly like childless cat ladies, playing up to the stereotype like it's going out of style. I think Nicole Wallace actually came close to coughing up a hairball live on the air. Remember Angela from The Office? Remember the Office episode where she went home and licked her cats and everybody watched her do it on the nanny cam? I bet Nicole Wallace goes home each night and licks her 14 cats. What did J.D. Vance say that was really so uproariously controversial? In a nutshell, he said we shouldn't be investing the decisions regarding the future of our society to a leadership class that is increasingly made who are not direct stakeholders in either the country's past or its future. And yeah, if I'm Kamala Harris, that probably hits a little bit too close to home for comfort because it describes her to a T. And we have sure as shit never had a major party presidential nominee with 0 American ancestors and 0 American children. If she wants to be seen as a historic and unprecedented type of candidate, then let's talk about all the ways in which she is historic and unprecedented, shall we? Rather than just the ones that she would prefer to talk about. Dateline Washington, Wednesday, 7 August. In this week's installment of our ongoing series entitled, No, You Don't Hate the Media Enough, and They Really Are Fake News, NPR issued a report this week because, of course, it had to be NPR, saying, while trying very admirably to keep a straight face about the whole thing, that Democrats across the fruited plain are embracing and making into a badge of honor the Tampon Tim sobriquet that has been bestowed by the internet upon Governor Tim Walz, and not without good reason, since he is, in point of fact, the only governor in U.S. history who has signed his name to a legislative act mandating feminine hygiene products in the elementary school boys' room. Because Tim Walz is a man who has got his priorities straight, goddammit, and he wants everybody to understand that nothing says feminism like a dude sticking a tampon up his ass. Or, as the case may be, a dude punching a lady in the face, which reminds me of a couple things. Number one, the Olympics are still going on, but I think they're mercifully close to being over. But for those of us who don't have TV and wouldn't be watching the thing even if we did, it's difficult to keep track sometimes. And number two, yes, I know it's going to come as a shock, but the big hulking dude from Algeria did, in fact, win the gold medal in the freestyle domestic violence event. Imagine that. A dude enters a punching contest against a bunch of ladies, and the dude winds up winning. What'll they think of next? Now, after NPR put out this ridiculous piece about Tampon Tim being a badge of honor that any man should be more than proud to wear, you can probably guess what happened next. That's right, every wacky wokester in the whole Twitterverse decided to pile on and not just endorse NPR's thesis, but double down on it in some ways that, Christ, let's just say people who were born with one shred of self-awareness would never, in total seriousness, type these words and blast them out to the whole planet. And the one who outdid all the others, in the opinion of this reporter, was someone named Monica Hess, who apparently works at the Washington Post. I know, I'm as surprised as you are. Whoever would have guessed that it would be WAPO? Here's what Monica tweeted. And I need to preface this by saying I'm not making this up for satirical purposes. This is 100% real from an actual professional journalismer. Quote, since hashtag Tampon Tim is trending, I'll point out that in high school, any boy who casually was like, oh, you got your period? I stashed a pad from the bathroom in my backpack in case one of my friends needed it. That boy would be king stud. That boy would be drowning in prom invites. End quote. And I'm not going to comment any further on that one. It deserves to stand as a monument to itself, I think. Don't you? Dateline Mar-a-Lago, Thursday, 8 August. Former President Donald Trump called things exactly what they are this week, as he often does, when he said, in reference to Kamala Harris's reticence to speak extemporaneously into a live microphone, quote, you know why she's not doing it? Because she can't do a news conference. She doesn't know how to do a news conference. She's not smart enough to do a news conference, end quote. And he is not wrong about any of those things. For those fans who are keeping score at home, I believe it's 21 days now, 3 full weeks in other words, since Mrs. Emhoff was anointed Biden's successor, and the closest she has come to doing an interview or a press conference was to say that she hopes to schedule an interview by the end of the month. Not actually do an interview, mind you, but schedule one. In the first week of August, she said this. And if you're still not quite understanding the need for this total media blackout that is even more severe and pervasive than the one they had in place for the half-dead dementia patient, let's take a trip down memory lane to the one time Kamala Harris gave unscripted remarks in these last 3 weeks, which was at the airport when the hostages came home after that cited deal those idiots cut with the Russians. You want soaring rhetoric? You are not ready for my girl Kamala. Quote, this is just an extraordinary testament to the importance of having a president who understands the power of diplomacy and understands the strength that rests in understanding the significance of diplomacy. End quote. Now, if that doesn't sound like a person with her finger on the pulse of all the many intricacies of geopolitical brinkmanship, I don't know what the hell does. Or should I say, brinkwomanship? Dateline Londonistan, Friday, 9 August. British Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer still struggling to assert control after more than a week of rioting, counter-rioting, and counter-rioting that have accompanied a knife massacre at a children's dance class in which 3 little girls were slaughtered, says he is going to do everything in his power to make sure no more little kids get murdered by African migrants. No, I'm just kidding. Of course he didn't say that. That would be a sensible thing to say. And these are crazy people. Batshit crazy, in fact. Because occasionally, from time to time, one finds oneself confronted with the reality that, shit, I think the rioters and the government are... No, while you might expect a nation's prime minister to come out against murder in the wake of a mass murder, that's not good enough for our man Sir Keir. Oh, no. So what's he going to do? Increase the police budget? Why, yes, as a matter of fact, he is. In fact, he is going to create a brand new, shiny national police force that sends a SWAT team to your nan's nursing home if she makes a racially insensitive social media post. The Stormtroopers, you might call them. The Gestarmpo. Christ, I could do that all day. A sane leader might say, we won't tolerate children being murdered. What does this guy say? We won't tolerate Islamophobia and online hate. And I just saw last night, maybe you saw it too, where some loony Labour MP actually threatened that he was going to have Americans extradited and jailed for violating dumb British Orwellian speech codes. And am I the only one who feels like Orwellian doesn't go far enough anymore? I feel like we need a new adjective. I feel like if Orwell was here with us today, he'd say, this is freaking bonkers, chaps. I never saw anything like this come. What kind of freak do I look like? And like a wise man once said, I think that's just about all I've got to say about that. But you know what? I think as a general rule, every week on this program forevermore, we should endeavor to always conduct ourselves in such a manner that would get Sir Keir Starmer's knickers in a twist and make him want to throw us into the Old Bailey. You know, they've actually got a law on the books over there that makes a crime out of something called intentionally stirring up racial hate. Like, that is the actual wording of the statute. I am not making that up, which is impressive because that's multi-level thought crime right there. You have to prove the perpetrator intended to cause unapproved thoughts in the mind of some hypothetical person or people somewhere, and that the unapproved thoughts actually happened in the mind of some presumably real individual. Like I said, Orwell would look at that and he would say, I got nothing. You are the cradle of free speech and liberal democracy in England. Don't you ever change. That would make Lavrenti Beria freaking blush. All right, it's time for me to stop bloviating now and lateral the ball to the fleet-footed tailback who's going to take it 80 yards to the house, provided he doesn't fall victim to the dreaded beard tackle. My distinguished colleague, your illustrious co-host, he won the hominid triathlon at the Paris Olympics and didn't even vomit from all the poop water. The one and only, your friend and mine, Mr. Caucasian Sasquatch.